Hi all, Mike German from Visual Animation, and this is part 4 of the best simulation of 2023. And today we're talking about cloth and balloon and excuse me, and some Vertex maps. Okay, so on the screen you will probably notice, and you'll probably start thinking now in January, especially if you live in colder climates like the UK, of getting abroad, getting to the beach, laying on a lilo with a cocktail, especially after Christmas. Now that's the big thing on the horizon to look forward to, and we're definitely going to be doing it this year. I mean, we didn't have a holiday last year, but this year we're looking forward to it. So I thought I'd do something to get me in the spirit. So a lilo, inflatable, whatever you want to call this, using the cloth and balloon and vertexes within Cinema 4D 2023. Okay, so like always, the best way to do this is to start a new scene or just delete all of that out. Okay, so let's now for this lilo to work, I've actually created these lines in Illustrator, and I'm going to include that in the link below. But for this, what we'll do is we'll go to File and we'll merge, and we'll bring it back in as the AI file. And 2023 Cinema really handles Illustrator files very well. They just come in as lines, as splines, sorry, like you can see here, look, and they're inside this null there, look, the splines all separate, and this is perfect. It really does work really well from Illustrator now. We don't have to worry about exporting it as version 9 or something like that we used to in the past. So that's where we'll start. We now want to get a world scale. We want to get a real world scale, sorry. So we'll use the figure, and as you can see, look, we've got the scale a little bit wrong. So let's lay the figure over at 90, like they're laying on a lilo. Let's also lay over the null here of the splines, and let's just increase that up so it's the right scale. Okay, it makes a lot of difference when we're working with simulations and cloth and inflations and all that kind of stuff. If it's working on the model that's real life to the world, you're going to get the same feel you would get as, say, you're working on a very, very tiny little object or a massive, like several football pitches size. It will be a very different way the cloth would handle. So we want to try and get these as real life scale as we can. Right, so now we've got that established, we can delete the figure. So now we can just work with this, knowing we've got the right scale. So let's go to the top view and just have a look at this for now. So if we'd have a look in here, that we've got a spline for each part of this, okay? And we can just leave all those in there because we're just going to reference those as a whole. You know, we're going to drag them all in as a whole, so they can stay like that. Right, let's just go back to the perspective mode. And we want to use a cube, okay, and we want to shrink it right down so the actual thickness of this cube is only about, say, 0.2, okay, because this is going to start off like as a deflated lilo, and it's going to have the air pumped into it. And we have to use a cube or something that's enclosed for it to inflate like a balloon. We can't use a plane because there's nowhere for it to inflate, so we have to use a closed polygon object. So we use a cube. Let's go back to that top view so we can put this in the right place. We want to leave a little bit of gap around the edges, because that's where, if you see around lilos, you've got this kind of seamed edge around the edge there. So we just don't put it right the way up, and we just put that, just do it by eye. If I tend to do things like this by eye. Back to perspective mode. So as you can see, we've got the cube there, and then we've got this nice lined lilo pattern laying on the top. Right, for the cube, we need a few more segments. Let's make sure we're on ground shading lines so we can see these. Let's add 100. Let's have a look at 100 and probably 200 that way, so we get some squares. Okay, that looks about right to me. Now what we need to do is we need to add First of all, let's go Control D on the keyboard and let's turn off, in simulation, let's turn off the gravity. I've already turned it off because this is a previous scene, wasn't it? Normally it's at minus 981 just there and things will fall out of the scene, so we need to add in 0 there in gravity. Right, next thing, let's right click and add simulation cloth. Okay, let's have a look what we need. Right, what we need to do here is, as this cloth is going to inflate, as we're going to inflate this, we're going to be using balloon and target length. I like to add a little bit more target length, and it adds a little bit more crease into this. Okay, you'll see what I mean as I start to do it. So if you put 105 in the target length, and then we go over to balloon and we turn on balloon, and the overpressure, if it stays at 1, nothing will happen. It'll be constant pressure outside and inside. Right, so we want this to inflate. We want lots of air to go into this this lilo. So let's start with so I don't know, something like 50. The expansion time here, 30 frames. That is how long it will take to inflate. If you put 1 frame, it'll be too quick and the geometry will all explode. So we want it to just increase over. I mean, we could even have that go over further, you know, like it's actually being inflated, you know, over time, you know, like how you'd actually inflate a lilo. So yeah, you can increase that up. We'll go for 50, and let me just play this now before I do anything else and just see what we get here. Right, so what's happening is, the reason it's creasing is because we put 105 in the target length. Okay, so it's found 5% extra material. That's what that's kind of like, you know, it's made it baggy because it's put an extra 5% in there. The length has got bigger. So that's what that's doing. And then it's trying to inflate that. So at the moment, there's nothing stopping it just inflating. Right, let's add a few more frames here as well. I've only got 90, let's go 300. So basically what it's doing is it's just filling with air over 90 frames. And obviously at the moment it's ignoring this spline shape that we've got over the top. So how do we make these splines become active as stitching, really, or as welded parts to this, so it kind of holds it down? Right, what we do is we right click on the cube and we go to other tags and we go to a vertex map. Right, so red we know means nothing's active. When it's yellow, it's active. Okay, so we need these lines to go yellow because they're going to be the active parts that are going to be held. We actually might have to play around with inverts and things on here as well, because we're actually saying we want the cloth to go into the areas that are active. So this may be a slight reverse of what I've just said. So let's just work through this and I'll show you what I mean. Right, so we've got a vertex map there, and what we need to do is, in the fields here of the vertex map, we need to drag these splines. Okay, so we just highlight the splines, go back to the map, and then drag all these in here. Right, now these all have come in a bit odd. Right, these need to all be maxed on here. Make sure they're all maxed because they all overlay each other. So we've got to make sure each one is active. So if you press max on all of them, it will include all of them rather than overlay and miss some out. So when they're all on max, I like to do that as well on max. Right. If we click on them and we look down here, so you can highlight them all together. We go to distance mode, it says along. We want that to say radius, right? Because we're just going to draw these on as a radius. Now the radius at the moment is too big. It's 10 centimeters. We can bring that down to 1, and then we'll get this much nicer look. Okay, so now we've got a defined vertex map, which we're going to use to inflate certain parts of this, and then other parts will have no inflation. Okay, so let's just have a look. Well, if we just press play now, what happens? Nothing. Okay, it's not looking at it at all at the moment. It's still just inflating this gradually up, and it's not looking at those lines. Right, so how do we use those lines now we have a vertex map? Right, so what we do is we go into our cloth tag, and then we go across to mix animation. this new tab that was added recently. And we're going to do this with pins, and it's going to pin down. You've got to think of this as it's going to pin down the stitched areas, like stitching or welding. It's going to pin that bit down and not be affected by cloth. So that is what we're going to do here, but we're going to influence that area with this Vertex map. Okay, if we just use it like that, it doesn't know what it's excluding, so it just exclude the whole thing. So what we're saying is, do not, so if we put the map in there, we're telling it to say the area that has the vertex map, which we've defined as that yellow line, is going to be pinned down and to not act like cloth, right? So it's saying the rest of it will act like cloth. Okay, so let's just see if that theory works by pressing play now and see what happens. Oh, no. Right, so it's always good to do it wrong, isn't it? So what I said before is we need to, right, let's go back. We need to reverse this, okay? We need to invert it. So if we go back to the basic, that we can press invert there, and now we're going to get the red lines, which are going to be doing nothing, and then the yellow, which is going to be inflated with the cloth, okay? So you've got to remember to invert before we do anything. Now let's try it. Okay, very important that invert, is you get a very, very different look. Now we are getting something that looks very much, we pause it there, and then I've already got a material here, which is just a blue material with some reflectance on it. Okay, we just drag that onto the cube, and then we do a quick render. What do you think of that? Straight, you know, it's not taken long, has it? You know, there's not much involved here to get these nice inflated looks. Now that's a lilo, you can do that. I'll include those lines, that illustrator line, so you can use that if you wish. You can also use this same technique to do quilting, you know, quilts for beds, mattress surfaces, you know, tufted quilted mattresses, cushions, anything that's got a stitch line. You can even stitch logos into this using this same technique. So I may do another video that will show how logos are stitched into material, you know, so it looks like it's being stitched on. So that's another thing we can do, but I'll do that in a separate video. So that's it. I just wanted to make this quite quick and just to say that's how you use cloth, balloon and vertex maps in that way to do like inflations of certain parts of your geometry. Okay, my name is Mike German from Visual Animation. Take care. Goodbye for now.